I'm Kelvin, CEO of Obsessive Innovations, and I'm presenting today on the paradigm shift and how you can innovate throughout these paradigm shifts. Now, everything I'm going to talk about has to deal with users and their problems. Now, as we all know, design thinking has to do with finding the user's problem and trying to solve them. But it's quite different when you're talking about paradigm shifts and innovation. And by what I mean by paradigm shifts, I'm talking about a shift in a trend or a shift in technology that opens up opportunities. So now when it comes to paradigm shifts, you're not just looking for a problem, you're looking for an unseen problem, which is experiential but can't be seen. People just know it needs to be solved, but they don't know how. So now think back to Henry Ford. Now, before he created the Model T, people were using horses. And he has a famous quote saying, if he had to ask users what would they need, they would have been like faster horses. They would have wanted faster horses, right? But people just knew they wanted to go to places faster. They just didn't know how it looked like. So that's when he created the Model T, and it was easy to sell. So usually with those things, they're very easy to sell because people know they want it inside, but they just can't perceive it because it doesn't exist yet. Now, to be able to do this, you have to be able to find the friction between what exists and the perception of what exists. What really exists and what people perceive exists, right? So think back to Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs knew at the time that people wanted to use smartphones simply in a very human, intuitive manner. They didn't want to be using a lot of numbers and buttons. They knew all this was intuitive and subconscious. They didn't know this consciously. So what he did was he created a phone that got rid of all the buttons. It just had one button, and people interacted with the interfaces instead of the buttons like all his competitors were doing. So when Apple launched, Nokia was like the best phone company, and eventually it died because Nokia was supplying to the demand, Apple was creating the demand. So that's the difference between innovating and selling, basically. Because with selling, you are just supplying demand. With innovating, you are trying to create demand because of the paradigm shifts. Now, let me give you an example of a paradigm shift. Before the internet came about, if you wanted to sell things, you had to have a brick and mortar store. You had to have things in there before you could sell it. But after the internet, all the cost of running an online shop went down, and Amazon took opportunity of that. Uber also took opportunity of people having mobile phones, and so they were able to access cars at multiple points, something that could have been done if mobile phones didn't exist. Right, so when you're trying to innovate, you are trying to create a demand, not supply the demand. Usually after you create a demand, your competitors will try to supply the demand because you've already established that there is a demand, right? Now, when you actually get to a point where you've identified the demand you want to create, the next thing you must do is you have to form a team. Now, usually in forming a team, you have to find people who align themselves with your core values, right? And they're inspired by the vision you are creating, right? And usually in doing this, you don't have to motivate them with money or anything like that. You also have to find, in the same way you found the desires of your clients, the desires they didn't know they have, you also have to do with your team. Because usually the people who work with you on innovative projects are people who desire something much bigger than money. And you have to find a way to connect with that core, because they're going to spend hours coding, working. Some of them will not be taking a salary and all that. All right, so now when you build your product, when you finally build your product, you have to be market driven and not product driven. Now what that means is you shouldn't try to sell something just because you are passionate about it. You should be driven entirely by the market. Right? So when Steve Jobs created the iPhone, before he created the iPhone, there were already smartphones existing, right? But he suited it to a way that the market will appeal to it in terms of desires. He played to the desires of the market, right? So this has to do with you have to own your distribution and how you tell your story. You have to own it. Like Tesla, if you look at Tesla in the way it is, it's an unsustainable business right now as it is. But people still continue to buy Teslas because of the story behind it, and they own their own distribution. Right, and this comes into play when you are creating your own markets, right? So now when you create the products, you are basically trying to get your customers from point A to point D, and in doing that, you don't just talk about your product features, you try to sell your value. and how you get the customers to get to that point. So basically, at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is take advantage of the paradigm shifts, innovate based on the fact that technology is decentralizing a lot of things, and sell to the market. Be market-driven, don't be product-driven. Thank you.